Good morning, Garden of England, Saturday morning. Well, this is interesting. I got up this morning and the sky was blue, clear, looking forward to a nice day, and looking forward in fact to this little video where I wanted to introduce you to the next phase of what I intend to do with the MindStore Centurions, the third act stuff that's coming. I'm going to start with on Monday. Now what's fascinating here is I love coincidence, as you know I do, and so I'm thinking, why did it go from clarity this morning to this? And what you may see there in the distance is a runner who's just passed me. He's heading now into the mist and he'll soon be gone, like you and I are heading down a path. And somewhere in the future, the mist will show up and we'll be gone. And this is fascinating to me because my intention on Monday was to begin to talk about the end game, the exit strategies for the third act, the MindStore Centurion. Now clearly with MindStore and the power of our minds, the power of programming, I'm in this for healthy longevity, physically, mentally, spiritually. I'm walking into the future. I don't see beyond the mist. Who does? I know what I believe's beyond the mist, but here we are. And the dog's barking because what we're about to talk about is really critical. So, what's been amazing is this week I returned to the regime, having had 2 weeks off with the holiday. I started the exercise routine on Monday and finished it yesterday. So I had 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every day improved, which is fantastic. Now every single day, like every day before when I've done those exercises, I really felt it. It's not easy to do. The good thing is it's short. It's not easy to do, but you always get progress. You have improvement and it makes you feel amazing. And then also this week I introduced on Tuesday and Thursday Dr. Sean O'Mara's sprinting protocol. Yes, sprinting. 70-year-old, never ran forever, now doing sprinting. It was easier than I thought, followed his instructions. You know, you can do this too. And of course, for every day, back onto the concoction. So things are looking good, but then Dr. John Campbell shows up in my feed with how to deal with stage 4 in the hospice cancer. Wow. Other things showed up about how to manage stroke, heart attacks. Don't know why they showed up, but source sent me to be aware of them. And that really excites me because I used to stand on stages, and some of you remember 30, getting on for 35 years ago and so on. My big thing, of course, was the management of stress because I lost 3 people to it. Not one of them got to their 40th birthday. But here I am now, 70. How lucky am I? But you know what? I would stand there and say that what we know is that 1/3 of you will die from cancer, 1/3 of you will die from a stroke, and 1/3 of you will die from a heart attack. That was apparently what was the zeitgeist. And then of course that was before really the explosion, it was beginning to happen, the explosion of type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes just, you know, gradually going on in the background. But from what we can gather, the ending isn't that good. Not good at all, in fact. And then, of course, we now know that dementia, which has had an explosion too, is now being called type 3 diabetes. So I'd intended to look at this ending thing. Now, one of the good things, of course, is that many of you who follow me may well be in your 70s, late 60s, I would imagine. Most of you. Just an assumption I'm making. You know, 1.4 thousand people watched one of my recent videos on the third act, and I'm going to guess that most of you who watched that, like me, were really fortunate in the sense that we were riding the wave ahead of the dramatic change in the introduction of horrific foodstuffs into our lives. Microwaved meals. I mean, we were already ahead of the curve. I mean, I suppose all of us, I certainly get caught up in the nonsense of low-fat yogurt, for goodness sake, filled with sugar. But anyway, we didn't know, did we? Didn't know what they were up to. And you know, cooking with, let's face it, you probably did it too. You would, if you did buy a steak, then you'd cut off the fat. You would cut off the fat from your bacon, if you were having it, and you would fry everything in sunflower oil, let's be frank, or even your chips in corn oil. Oh my goodness. Never mind all the sugar, and never mind the increasing production of fruits and vegetables with all that stuff that on this place here is constantly sprayed. And people are eating that stuff and have done. So we were ahead of that. So most of us are fairly lucky, I would suggest, that we are mostly reasonably healthy for our ages. But what's coming along the path? Do you see clarity? I don't right now, coincidentally. But my desire is to get through that gap and continue with healthy longevity, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And so this coming week I'm going to open up to some of the ideas of, look, if you are likely to die from cancer, a stroke, or a heart attack still, or the concoctions of morbidities that come out of type 2 diabetes, then you're going to be interested in where I'm going with this. John Campbell's videos, I recommend you seek out Dr. John Campbell and look at the recent videos. They're amazing. And he's obviously very, very angry that when you think of the billions that have been invested in cancer research, billions, maybe you, like me, ran a marathon or something. Maybe you showed up at events to contribute, to raise funds. Where did all the money go into? Who benefited from all of that? Did cancer patients benefit? Have we really made progress with all this research? And he's quite angry. Why on earth are these cancer research charities not looking at? Immediately the paper that was published that he reads out this week about that man who's stage 4 in the hospice and reverses out and is in complete remission because he started to use some generic drugs that the big pharma companies can no longer make money out of. And by the way, it's not easy to have them unless your doctor is seriously open-minded here in the UK to actually prescribe them to you, so you can have them in, if you like, your vitamin supplement drawer, in the little box where you keep those things if you use them, so that should the flu or COVID come raging through your body, you can turn to them quickly. And if you get the diagnosis, and you know what, I had the diagnosis. I've heard a doctor say to me, "You have cancer, Jack." Yes. And I had all these tools and techniques in my prime, in my 30s, being diagnosed. Fortunately, it wasn't. It turned out to be something else that was equally challenging, because the doctor who was demanding that I took his medication said if I didn't take the medication, listen to this, I would die a horrible and miserable death. Well, I took them for a while, and then I went the alternative route, and here I am. I'm 70 now. So you can tell I'm passionate about it. Inevitably got involved with Klaus and what was going on in Stuttgart with the, if you like, the alternative or complementary cancer clinic, using their protocols, the work of Dr. Joanna Budvig. And years on now, all the wonderful stuff, the stories of people reversing out of dementia, reversing out of MS, reversing out of Parkinson's, reversing out of all kind of cancers, even stage 4 in hospice. Turning to carnivore, turning to a ketogenic diet, removing all the fat, removing all those foods. And the other thing, going back to you and I, given that we're probably of the same age, you know, probably every one of us can cook because your mother cooked, maybe your father cooked. You know, we weren't given this crap food when we were children. Your mother cooked, and probably because your mother cooked, you learned to cook. At least you could do you could fry an egg in butter. You could boil an egg. I bet you can make a really cool spag bol, all out of fresh ingredients, real ingredients. Maybe you want to find an alternative like I have, using cauliflower rice as the base for my spag bol rather than pasta. Now, what I want to tackle coming up is, if we keep continuing with our goal setting and get passionate about our futures, even although some of it might be misty as we turn the corner, but nevertheless, we are passionate about the journey ahead, to be strong physically, mentally and spiritually, to have the goals to still chase, to use middle of the night programming and all the other wonderful techniques, which I will cover again sometime in the future. But what do you do if you get that diagnosis? I'm going to talk about that in the coming days. What happens if you have a stroke? What is my research showing you the best thing to do to ensure that you maximise your recovery? And likewise with heart attacks, I think it's important to look at what's out there, to forearm you, give you confidence. But what we need to do, you need to, I say already, you need to go to Dr. John Campbell. You can look through endless videos, but certainly the most recent ones. You need to go and look there. And we have to find a way of getting those generic drugs. I haven't yet approached my own doctor. I don't think he's going to be happy with me. And he puts up with my madness, he has, but I know he doesn't like the fact that I am never taking any of those injections. You know, it's just not going to happen. And I'm not going off to get certain tests for things, because I know that if he finds stuff there, like he wanted to put me on a statin, I'm like, sorry, I'm not doing that. Then, you know, he gets a little bit challenged by me. But I don't know how he's going to feel if I ask him, because I don't have anything wrong with me. Could you please prescribe me ivermectin and the other drugs that we know that if we got them in the cupboard will help us, seriously help us. Because you know what? That money that you continue to give to cancer research, if you do, I stopped a long time ago, that's never going in to the research that we require. However, John has announced this morning or overnight that at least in Florida, where I'll be off on holiday to again in February, they are now doing appropriate research about these drugs and cancer. How exciting is that? So coming forward, it'll be about prevention. It'll be about having confidence to deal should there suddenly be a break in clarity for you in the future, a diagnosis, or you have an event, and you can maximise your recovery. And you have on hand, hopefully, these drugs and potions, as it were, to maximise recovery. So let's go back to it just briefly. You get a diagnosis somewhere down the line. You can't see it just now, but somewhere in the future, maybe a diagnosis comes, as I've had. You've got cancer. It seems to me you've got three choices. You respond to that by going down the mainstream route. There are protocols, you follow that, you trust them, and you do the best you can. You've got all the attitudinal skills, so there's a good chance. Or you go down the complementary route. And Dr. John, in reading out some of those anecdotes this past week, then you can see that quite a lot of people rightly go down the complementary route. They're using these drugs alongside traditional treatment, and that makes to a lot of people just sense. And of course the third option is the completely alternative one. So you've got three choices should that ever show up. But I want to help you in the coming series just to look at some of this stuff, to confront ourselves with the fact that as we come to now to the brow of the hill, that sometime in the future along the path you are going to go down the hill. You might go down slowly, you might go down rapidly. And in my idea of the MindStore Centurion has always been the idea, and it first came into mind 10 years ago when it was my 60th birthday, is that you and I, when we come to the turn down the hill, that up until that moment we've been living a healthy longevity, physically, mentally, spiritually, with no fear. We're positive, confident, and if our programming works, then we just fall asleep. How cool would that be? And then the magic as the mist clears again. Oh, think about that. I'll see you on Monday.